Hello and welcome back to Sportsnet Lakers. I'm Chris McGee, joined by our Laker insider Mike Bresnahan, and joining us remotely, Lakers beat writer for the LA Times, Dan Wojcicki. Hi, Dan.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Bill Oram has moved away. Are you okay?
Taking it hard.
Did you get through it?
I mean, we're working our way through it.
Yeah.
I think it hasn't fully hit me yet. The next time there's just some awful pun to be made about Darvin Ham's name, and I look to my right and Bill isn't there.
Yeah.
I think that's when I'll feel it.
You're so sad you didn't even make your bed behind you.
It is Matt. That's a dog. That's a dog
okay. All right.
laying on the bed.
Just check it. Just check.
You didn't make the bed, huh?
Yeah. A little work at home there, Dan.
Oh, man, this is amazing. By the way, who does get to sit next to you now? Because I know it's a big deal when you guys are on press row, Brez. Like, who's your seatmate?
I think it'll probably be Jovan who'll get the bump up, I would assume.
A little bit of an upgrade.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, look, I just said anybody but BT was what I've always told people. Mm-hmm. But, like, we'll see. Maybe if Brez ever came out to a game, maybe he'd come sit by me.
I was about 40 games last year, but
there you have it.
They separate us. They separate us.
Yeah, you acted like you were never there, by the way. All right, let's get into it. The latest with the Lakers possibly pursuing Kyrie Irving. According to a report by Shams, there's no traction on any type of a Lakers deal for Kyrie Irving. The Lakers were said to be pursuing possible trade scenarios for the seven-time All-Star who opted into his one-year deal with the Nets. His running mate Kevin Durant demanded a trade prior to the start of free agency. Dan, what's the latest you have been hearing regarding Kyrie? You saw what Shams had to say. I know Ramona as well has been on the radio kind of giving us the latest. It seems to change every single day. Where are we at now from what you've heard?
Yeah, I think it seems to change every single day. I mean, I think the things that I think we can kind of ascertain from the situation is, one, Kyrie Irving isn't the Brooklyn Nets' #1 priority right now. That's Kevin Durant, and figuring out what to do with that and what it's going to take to get the package they want back for Kevin Durant. It does seem like Kyrie is sort of a back burner to that. Probably rightfully so. He's only got 1 year out left on his deal. The trade market is pretty weak. Per kind of the notion that there's no traction, I'm not sure I would go that far. I do think that there's functionally, right, like there's one deal, and it's Russell Westbrook and stuff for Kyrie Irving and stuff to make the salary work, right? Like that's the framework. And if that's not what Brooklyn wants today, then, that's kind of where they're at, right? Like if the Lakers are hesitant to include two, unprotected first-round picks into the 2030s, you know what I mean? Like then we are where we are. And I think, so, is it a stare down right now? I think a little bit of that. I think there's a little bit of posturing right now. But look, Kyrie Irving doesn't have a lot of suitors. The Lakers could use the talent upgrade. The salaries make sense. Like to me, like they still seem like the most natural partners. But just because it makes sense doesn't mean it'll happen.
Guys, I've covered a lot of Laker trades over the years, and you can't really predict when they will happen. You have things like Pau Gasol materializing out of thin air back in February of 2008. No one had any clue that was happening. Same for 2012, Nash, Dwight Howard, maybe a few more people knew about it. These things can jump out of nowhere. That's not the case for this one. Everyone thinks it's going to happen, so inevitably, maybe karmically, it will take a lot longer than people expect, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this thing, Dan, it could take up to training camp. We could still be here in late September saying, well, is Kyrie coming to the Lakers? I mean, it could go all the way to next year's trade deadline in February, or it might never happen. There's been like a graveyard of trades that never happen in the NBA. Of course. Plenty involving the Lakers, of course. Right now, it seems like it's pretty quiet on that front.
Give me a reason why it wouldn't get done, Dan.
Because the Lakers don't want to commit to Kyrie Irving long term. To me, that would be the reason why, if I was Rob Pelinka or Jeannie Buss or any of the decision makers in that room, as to why I wouldn't want, if this is going to cost me a 27 first round pick, if it's going to cost me a 27 and a 29 first round pick, and I'm not sure that I want Kyrie Irving in my franchise for the next 5 seasons, I probably wouldn't give up those picks. But I think that's the question is what level of risk are you willing to assume right now to try to maximize sort of the end of LeBron James' competitive years in this league?
Yeah, the Lakers are definitely really reluctant to give up even more draft picks. Obviously now that's a new calendar year as far as the NBA is concerned. They can throw in that 2029 as well. But they're really in trouble as far as draft picks in the near term. Next year they have their pick, but New Orleans can flip with them. This year, that would allow New Orleans to move up several spots from where they ended up in the draft. So I think the Lakers are saying, let's try to get this done without any future draft picks. They really want to start kind of corralling those. But maybe everyone wakes up tomorrow and says, okay, this can be done with one of the 2 draft picks. And here we are. We have a trade.
All right, guys. Vegas has spoken, and the Lakers are overwhelming favorites to be Kyrie's new team. But take a look at who is next on that list with the second best odds. It's the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't have to go anywhere.
Right, yeah. It could be the type of thing where the Nets say, you know, and the Lakers did this with Kobe back in 2007 when he asked to be traded. It was before the offseason even began. The Lakers were done in April that year. I believe in May, Kobe said, you know, I want out. And it took 4 or 5 months of relentless, you know, Kobe, come on, let us work this out. Let us work this out. Guess what? He came to training camp that fall. Pau arrived about 8 months later, maybe 6 months later, whatever it was, and everything was fine. So there's a chance the Nets say, come on, KD, come on, Kyrie, let's try to make this thing work. Maybe both guys are back when camp starts in the fall.
Well, listen, they have had some magical moments together, Kyrie and LeBron, if they were to team up again. And if you want to look back at some of those great moments, look no further than the NBA Finals when they were together with Cleveland, down 3-1. Game 5, Kyrie and LeBron answer the bell, both going for over 40. Damn, the first teammates to ever score over 40 in the same game in the NBA Finals. Kyrie was 5 of 7 from 3, finishing with 41. That game right there propelled them to victory.
Yeah, he's as skilled as anybody on the court. And then there's game 7, of course, right? Like, so I was at both of these games. And, you know, the difference between where Steph Curry was at that time and where Kyrie Irving was, it wasn't that far apart.
No.
Right? Like, I mean, that is Kyrie Irving at the end of game 7 who breaks down Steph Curry, I believe, off the dribble to hit like the go-ahead 3 inside the final minute. As talented of a scorer from that position as there is in the league.
You're also
can do it all.
You're also seeing one of the great moments in LeBron James's NBA history right here, his career, which is the come from behind block on Iggy late in that fourth quarter, Brez. And then that takes us to the game winner, the biggest shot of Kyrie's career. That is what Dan was just talking about. Breaking down Steph, and he buries it.
Every person in that arena was standing. Like Dan, I happened to be there, very fortunate to see such a crazy series. And obviously, you always want to see some NBA history. But there's no stranger to big moments for Kyrie Irving. I mean, he is, the bottom line is, when he's on the court, he is an incredible player. Is he top 10 in the league? Probably a little outside that, but still, he offered a lot when he was on the court last season. And, you know, the Lakers are going to be looking at that for sure.
Dan, you know what's great about Game 7s in the NBA Finals? Father's Day.
There are many of them.
Father's Day.
Oh, yeah. It was Father's Day.
Father's Day. You got U.S. Open and that game. I remember it fondly.
Big schedule there.
Keats, I'll say this really quick about Kyrie, too. Like, so when we talk about him and his reliability, right, it's oftentimes about the off-court stuff, right? Who knows what the vaccine mandates are going to be? Who knows sort of, you know, what kind of headspace he's going to need or mental health breaks he's going to need? Like, who knows, right? The guy also has injury issues. And I think that is another thing to consider for a team that has got stars built around, or for a team that is built around stars that have had injury issues, investing again, multiple picks, multiple years eventually into another guy they're not quite sure you can count on for 70 games. It's tricky. I do think, though, ball in his hand, when he's going, he's as good as anybody. He's such a good shot creator. That's why he's worth the risk, maybe.
Okay, well, let's talk about a former Laker who actually won a championship in a purple and gold uniform, Kyle Kuzma. He's still a fan favorite. So Sam Quinn said Lakers won a title spacing the floor around LeBron and AD. Pick and roll with Caruso, Kuzma, KCP. Just imagine Kyrie, Harris, and Curry spacing it. And Kuz said, you do know that we all locked it up, too. I mean, that's something that everyone seems to forget. You actually have to play good defense to win an NBA championship. It's not just about spacing the floor. Spacing the floor is something you have to have in today's NBA to win, but you have to be able to defend multiple positions, especially on the wing and the perimeter, and that's what the Lakers did. Do you think they're going to look for that identity again, Dan?
I mean, I think everybody wants it. You know, whether or not you can get it, I think, is another thing. I had this thought during the finals this year watching the hated Boston Celtics, is you look at that roster and it's all two-way guys, who played. They were all guys who guarded, all guys who played on offense. And I think, look, did the Lakers make steps in the right direction so far in free agency towards that? I think so, right? Like, they certainly got younger, they got more athletic, but there's a reason why these guys aren't everywhere. You know what I mean? And there's a reason why they're hard to sign when you don't have a lot of cap space, is because everybody wants these players. Yeah. Everybody wants young, athletic players, especially on the wing, who can guard multiple positions, who can switch, who can get out in transition, who can make threes. They're hard to find. That's the Max Christie gamble, right? Where you take a 19-year-old in the second round of the draft. As you do it because he's got long arms, you think he can guard multiple positions, you make that bet. It's hard. I think they'd like for it to be their identity. I think getting there with the way the roster is constructed today, it might be tough.
Yeah, look at a year ago. What were the Lakers going after in free agency? Veteran shooters. Wayne Ellington, Carmelo, Ariza can stick threes, as we all know from his days here with the Lakers. This year, completely different. Not any great shooters so far among the 4 people they've agreed to terms with. What you get is youth, and hopefully some better defense, maybe some toughness that Rob Pelinka was alluding to the last time we talked to him on draft night. So there's definitely some things that the Lakers are trying to do this year around. By the way, not one player over 29 they've signed yet. Last year in free agency, they signed, 8 guys who were over 30 years old? So, yeah, definitely.
Different path.
Different path, yeah, well stated.
All right, Jeannie Buss tweeted this weekend about missing Kobe Bryant, saying he would understand and explain everything that I'm not allowed to. Honestly, he was the greatest Laker ever. He understood team over self, meaning your rewards would come if you valued team goals over your own, then everything would fall into place. We're heading to break, but first, a Mamba moment.
Approaching 7 to play, Kobe Bryant.
Look at this, gets the contact, has no idea where the basket is, but here's the whistle, so he shoots it at the basket. What a spectacular play.
And welcome back. The NBA offseason is in full swing. Free agency began last week. Time for some power rankings. Best offseason moves so far. Team spreads so far. Still a lot to be done. We shall see. Dan, we're starting with you, number 5.
All right, we're going to ignore their horrible new uniforms, and we're going to start with the Utah Jazz and the haul that they got for Rudy Gobert. A team that is taking a new direction. Will Hardy, really well-respected young coach. And I think, if you're going to start over, doing it with every Minnesota draft pick seemingly, through the next 3 presidential administrations is a good place to start.
I might be exaggerating, but they have 90 picks over the next few years. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Not by much.
Not by much. They did a good job.
I got Utah at 5 as well, and I would just add to Dan's, they got some pretty good players back in the deal, too. Not just 4 first-rounders. You're talking Pat Beverly, who's probably a starter for them at point guard, depending on what they do with Spida Mitchell. You got Malik Beasley. 15 points as a starter. He could probably do that if he's a starting shooting guard. And, of course, I got Jared Vanderbilt, a very good fill-in starter at times for Towns last season. So 3 potential, I'm not going to say starters, but 3 definite rotation guys.
When you said Beasley, B. Arthur, the dog, literally popped up. It was amazing behind you. That was
That's his guy.
I mean,
he's a big fan of
huge.
All right, who you got for number 4?
Number 4 was tricky. Who did I have for number 4 again? I'm sorry. This is
you went the Hawks.
I have Atlanta, another team that, by the way, sold all in. And I wanted to have the Spurs kind of tied with fit, but there wasn't enough font room. Atlanta gave up a lot for DeJounte Murray. But in him, you get, I think, a perfect complementary player to Trae Young. Trae Young's not a guy who's going to lock anybody up defensively. Man, DeJounte Murray's a nightmare on the perimeter. His long arms, and he's coming along as a scorer. I like that the Hawks are going for it with this core. Everybody thought they'd trade John Collins. Instead, they added, and look, and who knows what they could do next. But I really like what Atlanta's done so far.
What about for you, Brez?
Golden State, nothing too flashy here. I just like the fact that they're trying to retain.
Business.
Yeah, just trying to retain as much of their own here. Keep Kevon Looney for sure. He turned into a really good defender, rebounder, especially in the playoffs. That one ridiculous game he had where he just went nuts and really helped the
reliable.
Warriors. Yeah, very reliable. Look, he's not going to wow you. He's obviously not a stretch five in any way, shape, or form, but keeping him as that center core until maybe James Weissman or one of those guys is ready to go, that's a good pickup for them. And, of course, DiVincenzo. They added him, a good three-point shooter, good defender, has some good moments towards the end of the season with Sacramento. He's going to be very effective for them off the bench.
I like that pick. All right, Dan, number 3?
Boy, Brez hates Gary Payton. Number 3 for me is going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves. And while they gave up a ton, they are maximizing their moments right now with Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. They are going to be different from everybody else in the NBA, right? And I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad, but I know it's different. And I like that they're taking a swing. They had a huge, by the way, under the radar offseason move that we will never talk about. Tim Connolly hiring a top tier general manager. They've got new ownership coming in. I like that they have a go for it identity now in Minnesota. They're not going to sign free agents. You got to go trade for them. Rudy Gobert is a really good player, and I think he'll be interesting with Karl Towns.
Yeah, Brez, you posed the question during commercial break, and we were talking about him. I mean, this is a huge year for them. Will they take that next jump and get into that top 5 in the Western Conference, top 6? We shall see. Who's your number 3?
I did not have Minnesota in my top 5 simply because I thought they gave up too much. Dan hates first-round picks, obviously. I went the Clippers as my number 3. I mean, I love the addition of John Wall for a mere $6.5 million. You always have to say $6.5 million is actually not that much in the NBA, where the average salary is over $10 million now. And they re-signed a lot of their core. Some of the younger guys. You got Zubats coming back. You've got Amir Coffey, good, talented, young shooting guard. And, of course, they brought back Batum and Covington as well. That's 4 guys that they kept in the fold, plus adding John Wall. Very good offseason so far for the Clips.
What about for you, Dan? Number 2.
That's who I have at number 2 is the Clippers. I don't know if John Wall is going to make a difference for them. I don't know. It is a nice gamble, though, I think, especially at that price point. They needed a point guard. They needed a playmaker. And, maybe John Wall's not the scorer he used to be, but I'm pretty sure he'll still be able to pass the ball. And then, like Brez said, you re-up with Zubats. You re-sign Batum. You keep Robert Covington. They're really deep. They may be the deepest team in the West. And if Kawhi Leonard is healthy and Paul George is healthy, they're going to be among the favorites in the conference. And they get lost sort of in the conversation because there's a lot of ifs. But, I think if John Wall, there's another one, if he can get even close to being a productive starting point guard in this league, they're in good position.
All right, Brez.
It's hard to not watch B in the background there, kind of hanging out with Dan on the back. B, what's up? I went with Atlanta at number 2. I just love the DeJounte Murray pickup. Okay,
Take the bet, B.
It cost them 3 first-rounders. I just complained about 4 first-rounders is too much.
Yeah.
But they got one of those back by trading away Kevin Huerter.
Yeah.
So maybe in essence they've only traded away 2 first-rounders this offseason to get DeJounte Murray. Huge breakout season for him. I'm eager to see how indeed he looks in that backcourt with Trae Young. Not exactly a low-scoring 1 and 2 right there.
Give me number 1. I know it's going to hurt. Just say it out loud.
Look, I mean, it's the Celtics.
Yeah.
And I think the Malcolm Brogdon acquisition to me is such a
Really
low
good.
risk.
Yeah.
Like, look, he may not play 50 games, right? Like he's been medically red flagged. That's why he slid in the draft. He struggled to stay on the court. But if he's out there, again, another two-way guy, a guy who can play some point guard, who can hit some shots, who can really lock up, good player, and really the only risk is out of the ownership's checkbook. And to me, whatever, you got to spend, scared money don't make money, right? And good for Boston, a really high-level acquisition.
Brez?
I'm with you. Don't hate us, Geet.
No, not at all.
Dan's exactly right. I mean, the Brogdon pickup, only 1 first-rounder. That's all it costs him. I mean, that's a really good risk right there. Because I think when he's on the court, he will reward you. They finally have that scoring point guard that they really seem to lack in some playoff games this past season. Also, we just showed a little bit of B-roll of him. Danilo Gallinari kind of reportedly going to be going back to them when he gets cut after the trade to the Spurs. Should happen within a couple days. He's got to clear waivers and that type of thing, if indeed the report is true. You got a guy like Gallo off that bench. He's a guy who can get you into the teens pretty quickly if he's having a good night.
For those of you that call us homers and say we're biased, look what we just did. Celtics and Clippers are both in the top 5 because it's all about credibility first.
Got to be accurate.
The truth.
Journalism.
He's done a great job. So the Clippers. All right, straight ahead. Anthony Davis has been putting in work at the Lakers practice facility. We'll show you what he's been up to and take a look back at his top plays from this past season. Welcome back to Access. The Sparks beat the Phoenix Mercury Monday 78-75. In 2 of the last 3 games, the Sparks starting 5 have all scored in double digits. And for the first time this season, the Sparks have won 3 consecutive games. Nneka Ogwumike has led the way, averaging 22 points in those 3 games. Here's the All-Star and the reason for the team's latest success.
I think each game is a step in the right direction. And then also to, with the changes we've experienced, kind of determining and finding our identity individually and collectively, Coach Fred does a good job of establishing that. We have a coaching staff that really lets us understand, what we are great at. We're playing against great teams, but we're a great team too. And so respecting that in each other and having that confidence when we're out there, I think is really contributing to the cohesiveness that we're feeling and that we're seeing.
And the Sparks picked up win number 502 after beating the Mercury, and it's the most wins by a long margin, which is really cool. Next team being the Phoenix Mercury with 434. The Sparks will look to make it 4 wins in a row when they take on the Storm on Thursday. Game time's at 7:30. Our pregame coverage starts at 7, right here on Spectrum Sports. Back with the Lakers, let's take a look at the current roster for LA with the free agent additions. Troy Brown Jr., AD, you see there, Wenyen Gabriel, Stanley Johnson, Damian Jones, Kendrick Nunn, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Russ. Lonnie Walker has not been officially announced, but reported to join the Lakers on the mid-level. Dan, I'm going to start with you. So you look at that list right there, and it's not a lot of names that are going to jump off the page and wow you, and there's going to be a big celebration, but there are some players with a lot to prove, and there's definitely some youth on that list. Which Lakers addition did you like the most?
So far, I think it's Damian Jones, and that's not to disparage. I think there's a chance that the Lonnie Walker signing is a really nice signing if they can kind of maximize what he does. But I think Damian Jones, to me, sort of just fills a need. And if you're going to play a big next to Anthony Davis, you're going to need a big that plays like this. I mean, they saw what he could do in an 8-game stint with the Lakers, 2 years ago. We've seen guys like JaVale McGee be successful in that role. I think he has those skills. I really do. I think it was a really smart signing. I think he's the guy who has a real chance to help them.
Were you surprised Lonnie got the mid-level?
A little bit. I think less surprised that it was a 1-year deal. I think the Lakers have wanted to preserve that long-term flexibility. There is a lot of talent there. And, when you talk to people in San Antonio, they rave about his character and his work ethic. And I think he's young, a guy with some untapped potential. He's just a little streaky. And I think you can convince him to play defense a little bit more. He is a really good athlete. Maybe there's something there. I like the swing. I like that this front office is taking swings right now on young players. You're just going to have to hit a lot of these, I think, for a roster that needs to improve.
Brez, can you name a role player when you look at that list that you believe needs to make a big contribution this year for the team to kind of make that next step?
Yeah, the guy Dan was just alluding to, Lonnie Walker. I mean, the Lakers used the big free agency tool at their disposal, their biggest one, to sign him. So they gave him the whole $6.5 million, and he's already making more than Kendrick Nunn will. And that was last year's signing at the same mid-level spot. So I think he needs to show that, hey, I had some moments in San Antonio, but he's not known really as a shooter. He was okay earlier in his career, but last season, 31% with three-point range. He is hopefully, like AD, in the gym working on some shooting because he's got to add or get back to where he was earlier in his career. One guy not on this list, by the way, Max Christie, still has not officially signed the second-round pick out of Michigan State. He's playing in Vegas right now. He's playing some summer league ball for the Lakers, but just not officially on the roster yet.
All right, long before Darvin Ham finally got his dream of becoming a head coach in the NBA for the Los Angeles Lakers, he was great at basketball. He spent 8 years in the NBA, and he won an NBA championship with the Pistons in 2004. But that's not even the coolest thing about Coach. When Ham was in college at Texas Tech, he broke the backboard on a dunk in the NCAA tourney, making him probably the only head coach with that on his resume. Now, here's a look back with our backstage cameras as he relived this moment as an assistant coach with the Lakers 10 years ago. Enjoy.
Oh, look at Ham! Oh! Everybody know what happened.
You can't see me, though.
Everybody know what happened. He's actually not even in the picture. He's getting out. My teammate shot a crazy hook shot, and they was ready to go back in transition, and Vince Carter had already leaked out.
Vince
And as
Carter's
he
supposed
would
to box
tell you, he didn't box out. He didn't box out the ham, and that was the wrongest thing he could have done in that game.
Broke the backboard.
Yes, sir.
Freshman year in college.
That's a hell of a game.
I heard about that all year. Also, glass still cutting up.
That was amazing. I don't know, was I born? I think I was in the 7th grade, I think, something like that. 6th, 7th grade, yeah. I don't remember seeing it live, but it's pretty impressive for a guy 6'3" like Darwin.